Making a game engine is a canon event in the life of a low-level game developer. And after making games in C++ for many years, I also made my own game engine that has C++ scripting, and I'm also making a new one for a Metroidvania-like game. But when you think of a game engine, if you think of something like this, I have something way better for you. You see, there are two types of game engines. The classic one, that everyone likes to just copy, and another one, which is actually what I use to make my 2D Steam game, and also my multiplayer Minecraft-like game, my biggest project ever. I will talk about both of these two game engine types, and also how to choose which one to implement. And stick till the end of the video, because I will point you to what resources to watch after this video to learn. The biggest mistake people make when programming is not setting the intention. So here is what I mean. Do you want to make a game engine just because it is fun? Or do you want to make a game engine to actually make a game with it? Or is it both? It might be both, but most likely, one is a priority. There is nothing wrong with either one of these two options. But you should choose your intention clearly now, because this will determine how you make your game engine. Every feature has strengths and weaknesses. Making a game engine for fun will allow you to do basically anything you want. But if you actually want to make a game with that engine, you really need to be careful what features you add to it. So for every engine type and feature, I will explain what its strengths and weaknesses are. And knowing that information, you can decide what kind of game engine to make. You already know what a classic game engine is. It is like Unity, where you have an editor, assets, entities, an entity component system maybe, and a way to script the entities. But what about this mysterious type of game engine? It is what I call a framework. It is basically some libraries and things put together to easily allow you to make a game. This is my game framework, and I can easily get input and render stuff, but that's about it. I have no entities implemented, no asset manager system, and that's by design. You have to understand that every game is different. Making a generic asset manager to work for every game possible is just a bad idea. I would just rather make it for every game. For example, in my Minecraft clone, I just load the assets at the start of the game and that's it. But in an open world game, you have to stream assets in a custom way. In a Minecraft-like game, literally every system has to be custom made. So having a game engine will literally make things way harder. By having a framework with just a bare minimum, you can easily implement anything you need for your game. Trust me, this is 10 times more productive than making a super complex asset manager system in a game engine. So I would say, if you actually want to make games with this engine, make it more like a framework rather than a generic game engine. This is fun to code, but it is a jack of all trades, master of none situation that doesn't really help you make a game. Okay, now let's look at practical tips for both of these things. First, you should have a step-by-step approach. I recently saw someone make a super complex OpenGL abstraction layer for his game engine. He said that he might need these systems, so he made them before making the game. But it is super wrong. What he wrote there is more complex than what I wrote for my Minecraft game, and I worked on that game for 5 years. People overcomplicate stuff too much. Just keep things simple. Also, don't just add random features. Here is what you should do. If you have a game in mind, start working at that game, like now, without a framework. And as you work on the game, as you discover what things you need, also develop your framework or engine. If you just write game engine code, without also making a game with that code, you will just write useless things. So make at least one big game first, before you make an engine or a framework. Here is exactly how I made my own framework. First I made a standalone 2D library. Now you can use pre-made libraries like Raylib or SFML. I used to use SFML, but I didn't really like it, and I wanted to have my own 2D library. This allowed me to make it however I want, and it was also super fun. Chances are, you also want to make your own 2D library for your engine. So I recently released a 2D library in C++ and OpenGL course. Besides batch rendering, text rendering, and proper texture atlases, I also talk about how to properly design a good library. This is a skill you absolutely need when making a game engine, so check the first link in the description and it might have a special discount. Now after I had my 2D library, I made this setup. This basically opens a window for me and gives me init, update and destroy methods for the game. On top of that, it also configures my 2D library and also other libraries like ImGUI with extensions and stuff. But most importantly, I set up input correctly. Most people handle input in a horrible way, because that's just what they see online. Don't just copy what other people do. Most people just use callbacks for input, and that is extremely bad, super bad. Never do this. It's like 11 out of 10 bad. Yes, all window libraries will give you input like this, but you need to convert it into what I call immediate input. Basically, I don't have an update function, a render function, and an input function. That makes zero sense. I just have the update function, where I can ask for input at any time, and I can also render at any time. Now you will probably want to use CMake for this, and I have this video on YouTube for that. Trust me, everyone teaches CMake wrong. Watch this video, and you will understand what I mean. But now, let's talk about how I made my classic game engine, Pika. Now, Pika is different from all game engines because I don't have any features like entity system, asset system, or even a rendering system. Every game is different, so instead, I made it super simple for the user to implement any system he needs. It just takes a few lines of code to get from here to a full 3D editor. And this brings us to the engine UI. Like you see these windows here. Just use IMGUI for it. It's the best library for that. And configure it with the docking extension, and also enable viewport. You can check my framework to see how I did it. This will allow you to move windows out like this and dock them. Now you should take things step by step. I see so many people split the engine in like a ton of folders. Just do things naturally as they arise. Start with a single folder and split it into multiple folders as your engine grows. Start with a window, then add 2D stuff, then IMGUI, then the IMGUI window manager, and so on. Now let's talk about scripting. The idea of scripting was to allow artists and non-technical people to more easily add stuff in the game. Can you see what the problem is here? Since you are making the engine for yourself, scripting won't help you. In fact, it will have many downsides. First of all, C++ is a statically typed language. This can actually catch bugs for you. But if you take something like Lua or Python, those languages won't catch those bugs. Also, for any feature in your engine, you need to write a ton of code to expose that feature in Lua or Python. But if you just script your engine in your native language, things are so simple. You can just take the code you wrote for your engine UI and give that to the user as it is. This is what Godot does. So don't just blindly add a feature without thinking if you actually need it. For my framework, I obviously don't have any scripting. I just write the code directly, and I recommend you to do that. For my game engine, I have native scripting. I can make the game in C++ and recompile it. But this was quite a lot of work, and this also has quite some problems, like poor multi-threading support. So if you want to implement scripting, JavaDX 9 has a tutorial. And also, if you want to implement native scripting in C++, I learned that from the Handmade Heroes series, from the first like 30 episodes. Quite a lot to watch, but you will learn a lot, so I strongly recommend it. Now in the description, I have a lot of technical videos and tutorials that will help you make and structure your game engine. Select the right one based on the current level that you are on. Also, the first link is my 2D library course. If you already know OpenGL and C++, this course is perfect for the level you are on. I show you how to make a 2D library that you can use for your framework, game engine, or games that you will make. Besides that, I also show you how to apply the 5 pillars of good library design to make a good library, so you learn how to write better code for your game engine, besides writing the library itself. I also have 20 plus guided challenges that you have to implement on your own, so you actually get to practice, not just blindly copy code. So now, check the links in the description to start your game engine journey.